Hello, everybody. Welcome to a very cool webinar. I think you're going to love this one. Anyone watching us along on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We have got GS1 with us, which everyone knows is the standard for sure in barcodes. So the, jailbreak, the jail bar type things that you see on the back of all of the products that we all make these days. But it's coming. We're all moving to 2D codes, eventually to QR codes. I am commemorating that with my t-shirt also. This is not scannable. Don't try to scan it. It just says love in the middle. But I love QR codes. I'm a big fan. And so I'm really excited about this transition. And we've got some really cool ideation that we're going to do on today's webinar as well. So thanks a lot to GS1 for always bringing us this very cool level of info, because it's coming. And I just want everyone to start thinking about what could be possible, because there are things that you can start doing before even the full cutoff transition actually takes place. So today we're going to work with Ned to go through some of the basics and understand what is actually going to happen, what the functionality that it's going to unlock is going to be. And then we've got some very special guests who have joined us also to help you think about what could be possible from a branding perspective, from an ops perspective, because I think a lot of it is we actually don't know all of the cool stuff that we're going to think of doing once this additional capability is unlocked. So without further ado, Ned, I'm going to pass it to you. Do you mind just introducing yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Am I coming across okay?
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'm Ned Mears. I work at GS1 US. We're the global not-for-profit that's helped to manage and maintain the use of barcodes for the last 50 or so years. I work on our standards team here at GS1 US, which really is about meeting industry where they are in their pathway to implementing our standards to get the benefits for their business. My background prior to GS1 was all in commercial printing, packaging, labels. So I feel like a lot of the folks in this community are going to be very close to my heart in terms of the work that I've done in the past. All right.
All right.
Cool.
Yeah, let's jump into it.
Jump right in. Sounds good. I always go through this antitrust caution. This is part of our governance as a not-for-profit. Basically means that we just don't discuss prices, margins, other things like that that might be competitively sensitive. And the legal disclosure, which really just kind of in summary says, advice that I provide or GS1 provides in this context, it really is your business decision whether or not you choose to use it. And we just have no liability for that. We also don't represent the FDA. So any claims about recalls or regulatory stuff, that's just for advice and guidance alone. So the main thing that I'm here to talk about today is sort of twofold. The very specific topic is Sunrise 2027, right? This is what we are marketing. This is what we're really discussing with industry, and an initiative we've got just a ton of drive behind. And Sunrise 2027 is very, let's say, specific in what it is that we're trying to get industry and retail to do. The other thing that we'll kind of touch on as we go through is a bigger picture of the broader global migration to 2D. So getting away from those 1D barcodes that look like prison bars, as Daniel mentioned, into 2D, which is just a more capable and modern form of the same thing. So you can see on the screen here a little bit of the why, what, and the how, right? And the why for both of those programs that I mentioned is just having more actionable data at the right place in the right time, right? The way that we're going to do this and what GS1 is advocating for is modernization of retail point of sale to begin with. That's really what Sunrise 2027 is about, getting that beep at checkout from not only the existing UPC or 1D code, but being able to do that as well from a 2D code, which is what we're going to go into in just a minute. And how we're going to do this, really, it comes down to a good partnership with companies like the folks on this call, large industry retail players, and other people in the space to sort of test, pilot, and help elaborate what are the challenges that are going to be faced as we kind of move through this migration. I think probably everyone on this call is familiar, let's say, with the general capability of what a QR code can do. I mean, they're everywhere, right? And a lot of packaging already has QR codes that serve one, two, or several purposes. So this example on the screen, it just kind of highlights how QR code on food packaging could take you to something like nutrition, safety, traceability, recipes, or even other types of marketing data. And really the core concept of this is the fact that in that one, maybe 1 by 1 inch square on the packaging, linking to those web resources means you can derive infinite possibilities of what you're serving to customers directly from the packaging. So I laid out this grid to kind of highlight a little bit of what this means, where are we going, what's actually going to be involved, and what are we going to get out of it. So I kind of want to start with the UPC barcode. You can see it there at the top left. I get a little bit passionate about this, but I think the point that I'd like to look at with this is you think about this little square. It's on everything we see. We're all using self-checkout, that satisfying beep that you get when you ring out your groceries, and a 12-digit number that's baked into that barcode. If you really consider the sort of retail landscape that we have today in 2024, getting groceries delivered within 2 hours, omni-channel, marketplaces, the access we have to consumer goods, it really does build on the shoulders of this incredibly simple combination of technologies: global unique identity and a simple barcode to make it readable by machines. But it really only does that one thing, the beep at checkout, that capture of the identity of the product. It's not really fit for purpose in most supply chain applications. You cannot extend it with more data that might be valuable to business, and it doesn't derive a web accessible experience. You scan it, an app might be able to do something, but it doesn't natively take you to a website. The second one is a GS1 data matrix, and then the third, the QR code. These are both examples of 2D codes. So the reason we use that general term of 2D is it comes in a variety of flavors and you can apply them slightly differently. So again, if we move sort of through those capabilities, point of sale for data matrix and for QR code is what we have in mind for Sunrise 2027. We want those point of sale scanners in retail applications to be able to pull the product ID from those two types of barcodes. In supply chain applications, that data matrix is the one that we're seeing the most interest in, right? So you're thinking pallets, cases, ship and own container. These are all applications of a more industrial, but also more capable 2D barcode. You can also see, as I got there, more data. So that small square is capable of holding an incredible amount of additional information about the product, pallet, or logistics unit that it's attached to. In terms of web access, it is possible to do it from one of these data matrices, but that capability isn't built natively into smartphones. So consumer tech, you can read this with certain applications, but your phone doesn't know that it's trying to take you to a website, even if you try to program the barcode that way. So the last one, the QR code, the one we're really going to focus on today, yes, we're going to see that at point of sale within the next 2 years. It could be used in supply chain applications, but might not be the best choice. It is also capable of holding much more additional data, and part of its native functionality is to derive a linkage to the web, so to take you to those thousands of web experiences. What I want to show next, this is as technical as I'm going to get in this presentation, but this is just to highlight a little bit more of the point I was making. You've got that UPC barcode with those 12 numbers, right? My opinion, the foundation of all that retail technology and all those advanced capabilities we have today. And it is literally just 12 digits is all you get. You scan it, 12 digits, and whatever that looks up, which is usually just a price. The data matrix, you can create a string of information. And if you use the GS1 system for all of that, you can kind of see on the screen how those all sort of accumulate to give you this sort of full picture or more specific picture of what the product is. So along the top, you've got the product ID, batch, expiration date. In the GS1 language, we just abbreviate that with an 01, a 10, and a 17 to tell you what is this data that I'm about to read, right? Make it accessible to a computer system or a business system. And then if we look at the QR code, I put two examples here. And really, this is the important thing, just to kind of show what we're talking about. So example.com, fill in whatever web domain you prefer, your brand, a short link or marketing provider, but something that you as the brand owner own and control. So you can direct people scanning those codes to whatever experience you choose. Now, if you get that QR code, we make it accessible at point of sale. What we're really trying to do is just combine and merge those two technologies. So the beep with the price lookup should be able to be done with the QR code, but it can also take you to all of those infinite experiences. The way to do that is just to set up that web address like you can see it, indicating it's an O1 and then you have the G10 afterwards. This isn't really something most brand owners might have to deal with. You might have a solution provider for this. You might be dealing with a separate web team, marketing team, et cetera. But I'm just putting it on the screen so you can understand how all of this stuff sort of fits together. And then that last example, the second one for the QR code, is how you would continue to add all of those sort of attributes, qualifiers, or more sort of specific granular data into that same web stream.
Is it, Ned? Let me ask you, because
Yeah.
if you're a consumer and you scan it, this
Mhm.
this QR code at the bottom,
Yep.
does that mean it would just take you to like a base website, or would take you to a, like if the
Yep.
URL, like do you have to have a separate website for that lot batch
Great.
number that to go to the site where you want a consumer to go to?
Nope. Nope. That's a fantastic question. I think owning that website. So let's say you own example.com, you determine where it goes, right? Your choice. If you have one product page or even the landing page of like an e-com site, all of your product barcodes could direct back to that. There's
Right.
no change in how that has to work. But the more information you add about a product, so you have the product plus the batch, the expiration date, even a serial number for a single product, you can control and align your product strategy with your marketing strategy. So you can take people to a very, very specific website based on that product and other parameters, right? But it's certainly no requirement. And usually this text you see on the screen will instantly redirect to an actual product page, and the customer doesn't have to see any of this information in the URL. Cool. All right. So just digging in a little bit more on this, on the Sunrise 2027 topic. Again, it's a modernization of retail point of sale technology. And really what it means is just being able to pull at least the GTIN, that's that product identifier. Usually we call that a UPC. GTIN is the GS1 term for global trade item number. But being able to hit the beep, pull the product ID from a 2D barcode, and there will be a transition period where you will still have UPCs and 2D. So there's many technical resources that we provide. We can work with solution providers, hardware and technology companies to make sure only one is scanned or one is prioritized. But just being able to get that product ID from the 2D code, no matter what the scanning environment looks like, that's the entire goal. So how this is all going to shake down, how this is all going to play out, really relies on people moving forward together, right? So as I kind of mentioned, it is a requirement, let's say, for retail point of sale technology. So retailers will be impacted. There's some movement that has to be made so the technology is enabled, the systems can handle it. There's no double scanning or double charging and things like that. But for people on the brand side that already have made investments in QR codes and the consumer engagement piece, that 2027 date is sort of an indication to you of when you can expect these to be used, right? But that doesn't mean brands have to wait until 2027. And there is no hard requirement or hard date to either start or be ready to have GS1 capable 2D codes on your product packaging. So it is a great time to innovate, experiment, see what kind of value you can derive from it, and get the conversation going with your supply side or your demand side partners. A little bit more detail about what should be in scope to evaluate. Now, this goes sort of across brands and retail, but it is important to think about what are the scanners that are going to be reading this barcode. Consumer smartphones, certainly. Now we're adding point of sale systems into that mix. You may also have internal processes, logistics, inventory management, anything like that you control, where you have handheld scanners or other devices. It's always good to check all of that stuff to make sure that it's going to work properly. Aligning your web capabilities and your marketing strategy of how the barcode will be used by those consumers. Getting all of the printing and packaging people on the same page. What can we do with this? How is it going to function? Very, very important. Aligning on the business benefits. You could start with a use case that's going to give you the most sort of ROI or the most return. And then, of course, the connected systems and the consumer experience outcomes. How is all this data going to be exchanged if I have multiple systems that may have to read it? And what do I really want the customer to get out of this, which is the most important part of the whole equation. All right, that's the end of my portion. I'm ready to hand it over.
All right. Yeah, perfect. And guys, there are great questions coming in. Probably we have so much time for them at the end, so keep coming up and thinking with them, and then we'll just cover them all one by one afterwards. But for now, I think that, like Ned was saying, there's nothing stopping you from, if you don't already have a QR code on your packaging, putting it on there and starting to learn. I think it's a really cool way to try to start building a relationship with a consumer, seeing what it does for you, seeing what % of people scan it, and just lots of cool stuff. So I wanted to invite a few different people who just can imagine kind of the art of the possible here with QR codes, what you might end up doing someday. So we're going to start with some of our partners here. So first, I will invite up, there are a lot of legendary duos in this world. There's Tango and Cash, Herner and Hooch and Turner. There's Crabtree and Everlyn. Today, we've got Kirk Visola and Andy Kurtz, better known as Kurtz and Kirk and Kurtz, to start with some branding-oriented QR code ideas. And then we've got Jamie Valenti Jordan, who will focus on ops.
Yeah,
I'll
thanks for
pass you
shitting
guys.
on that intro, Daniel. Appreciate it. I am Kirk Weissel. I'm the founder and creative director of Mind the Font, and I'm here with my good friend
Andy Kurtz, founder and creative director of Buttermilk Creative.
And that's how we introduce every single podcast that we've done so far. I met Andy, which is, I gotta do some backstory here. I met Andy actually through Daniel. Thank you, Daniel. Andy is an amazing designer and an even better friend. And we're just going to walk you through some ideas of what we would see happening or could see happening in the QRC and 2D space. Andy, do you have anything else you want to add before we get going?
Yep, that's perfect. Thanks for having us.
Yay. By the way, Andy's the more thoughtful and smart one, and I'm kind of just the wild smart ass. So you'll get to learn about that pretty soon. But QR codes are so cool because they provide an opportunity for endless creativity, imagination, and treatments. And so I have some different aspects here of making unique revisions to the actual QR code. So if you look closely on the one on the left, you can see it's still a QR code there, but people have put in things. Now, don't scan these if you're going to scan them. I do not know where they lead, so be careful of that. But these were all examples I found off the internet, and they all are working scannable codes. You can add a branding, and you can create unique artwork. This is all something that's so fun to think about and the possibilities, because as Ned was saying earlier, these can lead to like what they would call microsites or different aspects or even augmented things, which Andy will show in the digital realm. But there's so much information that can be had on these. We're gonna have to put like a million bugs. You can consolidate it into these fine, fun, and unique 2D codes on print.
Yeah,
and Andy, go ahead, Andy.
I was just going to say there was a neat, I can't remember who the business was, maybe Credit Karma or something, but they actually did a commercial, and the commercial was moving along, and then at the end everything sort of aligned to this organic QR code. It was really
awesome.
Cool. So yeah, visually, I mean, we're showing static here, but these can be dynamic. I mean, at some point they have to stop so you can scan it, but you're not, the days of like just doing like black and white blocks are over. That's what everybody is always like, oh, QR codes are so ugly. It's like, they don't have to be. They have to scan, but they don't have to be ugly anymore. And sort of the limit there is no limit to your imagination as long as it scans.
Right. And if they are ugly, sometimes getting information across is more important than the appearance, right? Our
That's
good friend Loop always says a well-delivered brand or package is better than a well-designed one. So get your information across. So Andy, you want to take us on about digital application?
Yeah. Yeah.
Next slide. Who's running this? Why are you behind?
There we go.
Yep.
So yeah, so I'm here to sort of walk you through some, hopefully this isn't too distracting, but I'm here to walk you through sort of some of the different digital applications of QR codes. And I'm just showing you like 3 examples here that I was quickly able to pull up. So, like Ned was saying, like these can point to wherever. And so they can point to landing pages, they can point to apps, they can point to app clips. I'm not going to include any of those. We can sort of go through a debrief at the end of this where we can share some of those different platforms that you can use. But the first example, landing pages to specific content. This is one of our clients. She has a QR code on the back of her physical box. And what she wanted to do was just share some ways to utilize the baking mix. So you can see in that first clip, I scanned the QR code. It takes me to this website. And now I can scroll through different instructional videos. And then, oh, by the way, you have opportunity to buy more. And so that's just a great simple, that's just a extra page on her Shopify site. The next one, storytelling and gathering info, is actually through an app, I think called Burst. And it's what's called an app clip, which is you don't have to install anything, but it looks like when you scan it, it looks very professional. It looks like an app when you click through it. So you can see I've already scanned the QR code on the physical packaging. It then sends me to this site, this platform. And what I like about it is that it mirrors the user experience of like scrolling through a Instagram reel or whatever. But through this, you can learn. See, they share, like you can enter to win some stuff. You can read reviews, do storytelling, another enter to win. And then you have these call to actions to follow. So it's a great place to do storytelling, gather info. And then the last one is the most important one, which is literally sending people straight to the product that you just used to buy again. Now, sadly, the effing pumpkin from Go Brewing is sold out. I'm sorry, but it's sold out. But if it were, available, you could purchase it right there. And it's right there in the can. You're drinking it, you're looking at it, and then you're going to hit that QR code and you're going to be able to get more sales as the business. So
yeah, and I think it's really cool too, because the technological advances for this are just endless. I mean, if someone's in the store, it could be to a point where a 2D code or a QR code could be so specific, it could tell you what store you're in, how many are left on the shelf, when it's coming in. It can even offer like possible recipes. Like these are just like possibilities I was thinking of, like recipes and finding items while you're in the store wanting to make something else with it. It's just such an amazing tool, and it's going to really take a lot of things forward for us. Augmented reality, like they do with Lego. Like Lego had augmented reality on some of their packaging, so you can see how the product works in a 3D space. So there's so much stuff we can do and learn here. And I think I'm done. Andy, are you done?
Yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for
I'm Kirk Visola. I'm founder creative director of Mind the Font, and I'm here with a good friend,
Andy Kurtz, founder and creative director of Buttermilk Creative.
And you just listen to the Kirk and Kurt segment on this beautiful thing brought to you by GS1 on QR codes and 2D barcodes. Love you all so much.
All right. And I put some links for these guys because they are a good time and very talented designers, both of them. So I put a link to their podcast in the chat here, the Kirk and Kurtz Design Podcast.
Yeah,
and I also put
that time.
Yeah, you make me so nervous, Kirk. I'm in the presence of greatness. Kirk is the man who designed the Shelfies trophy, and also that cool multicolored version of our arrow that we give out on pins. And Andy was on our
guidance.
Yes. Well, you guys both give me guidance. So then, and so Kirk's website is mindthefont.com, and Andy's is buttermilkcreative.com. If you guys want to follow up with them or add them on LinkedIn, they have some good stuff there too.
Much love. Thanks, Daniel. Love you, brother.
All right. Love you guys. All right. Another another one of the Startup CPG Avenger crew members joining us now. We've got Mr. Jamie Valenti Jordan. Yes, thank you for showing up with a QR code.
Hey, if you're going to do a webinar on QR codes, you got to show up with one, right? So,
yeah. All
um,
right. Can you introduce yourself first off?
sure. Jamie Valenti Jordan. I am simultaneously the CEO of Catapult Commercialization Services, as well as the Food Brand Program Director over at the Food Finance Institute. All of those are kind of centered around providing resources to those brands that are trying to get started and trying to get into the industry that, frankly, is super complex. So, yeah. And I call in today from the headquarters of the Institute of Food Technologists, where I'm a board member, and getting ready to have a board meeting here. So I could go on for another 20 minutes, and I've decided not to because you've dropped my link into the chat there. You can read up on me later. All right. So my application. So I was told, come up with something neat and interesting. So this is actually something that I've heard about a couple of groups already trying to kind of implement. So as we were talking about using QR codes for lot coding, you can go one step further and build an actual marketing development around the basically the one-to-one matchup of your lot code to your ingredients and necessarily the stories around your farmers. So one of the things that resonates well with the current, Gen Z and especially millennials is the authenticity of the food system, right? It's okay maybe to have a slightly longer ingredient deck if I can understand that there's actually people behind every single ingredient and understand the stories behind them. So what this has led to is overlaying what is already in place and required under the Food Safety Modernization Act called FSMA around being able to trace back from our lot codes the actual lot codes of all the individual ingredients that we put into our product. By the way, you should be tracking every lot code of every ingredient that comes into your facility and which batches it goes into, because that's part of your recall plan. But in so doing, you can actually tie those lot codes from ingredient suppliers in many cases back to a nice narrative from an individual producer, so a grower in many cases. What that allows you to do is actually tell the people engaging with your final product and the packaging that's associated with it what farm their ingredients for their product came from, which, frankly, it's going to be the same farm most of the time, but sometimes it'll change. And I think having that rotation and having your consumer understand how your supply chain is actually complex builds a value and a marketing platform around everything that you've been able to accomplish and the partners you're working with. So that's kind of a cool story you can tell using, frankly, just a handful of tools that we already have available today and just linking them together.
I love this example, Jamie, because probably most of the people in our community are really proud of their supply chain and sometimes even have part of their mission built into their supply chain. Maybe they're supporting farmers in a specific region that they care about, or there's a social initiative there that they are really passionate about. That is pretty cool that you could even be linking just directly so people can learn more about the impact of your supply chain that way, which, yeah, maybe it does change. Maybe you're a coffee company that pulls from a couple different really ethically sourced coffee farms and people could learn about it that way. Just really, really awesome to think about the possibilities.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, there's not enough attention given to our producers in our country, and it's good to kind of make the consumers aware. It's called consumer education in the system. So, yeah. Anyway, that's kind of the demonstration I had for you. If you've got any more questions around groups that are out there doing this, I have to go look them up, but I can find them for you. They charge a fee for their service to kind of set everything up, but hey, it's FSMA compliant, and you got to do that anyway. So yeah. If you ever want to find me, no, other side, we're over here. The Fellows program is over here that I was talking about earlier, or grab me on LinkedIn. I'm around.
It does scan. I tested it. So Fellows program for Wisconsin. All right. Cool. All right, so let's go to the next slide because I also dreamed a little dream and came up with some ideas for when we get to the QR code. So a couple that I'm kind of excited about. You saw Andy's example earlier of what could happen if you scan the code that's on somebody's package. It can take you to a certain website. I think eventually, like that website could actually be location enabled, and let's say you then give that website access to your location from your phone. It could theoretically hit you with a store-based coupon. Um, so like, you know, want a coupon or want a surprise, scan this code, and it might hit you with an immediate like $1 off, $2 off or something. And often you could actually tie that in with one of the digital coupon companies to maybe even get that person's phone number when you do that, right? So just in those lines of actually building relationship with consumers. Otherwise, you never get the ability to follow up with that person who scanned it. I've been hearing a little bit more about people who develop actually custom SKUs for Amazon. I think the main reason they do that is to avoid the resellers who just can really screw with your listing and offer bad service and plummet your star ratings. So some people create separate SKUs just for Amazon so that people can't hijack their listing. If you were doing that and you had your own QR code on your Amazon, you could be really pushing people to scan it like for leave a review and we'll give you a free case or something really cool just for the ability to build the relationship with the Amazon consumer, because that is one of the biggest downsides of Amazon is you never get the ability to actually contact people. So if by offering maybe just like flat out coupons or something, just some way to actually try to get their contact info, the people who buy you and love you off Amazon, could make it the perfect channel if you could really do that and just drive so hard to the QR code on that custom SKU that you're doing there. And yeah, just offer free stuff in exchange for reviews. We all know how important it is to get reviews on Amazon, the legal way, the right way to do it. And, just getting to that first 100 5-star reviews or whatever, could make that a lot easier rather than wasting, a year paying a bunch of fees before you even get to that tipping point. Food waste, I'm really interested to see what could happen with this. So, we have smart fridges where you can scan a lot of stuff, but they haven't been scanning lot codes. So, the fridge then should be able to actually scan the expiry dates of the food that you're putting in there instead of trying to read. Typically, like the way this works on a manufacturing line is, you just have kind of the barcode currently printed onto the actual packaging. If it's like a beverage, for example, then it gets filled. And then there's something on the line that's just printing the best buy or expiry date in text on the bottom of the can. But that's not going to be read by a fridge or whatever. So once it's all in the code and a fridge could read that, it would be cool if eventually that could actually link in directly to manufacturers and you could even reward consumers for not letting food go to waste. Maybe that's part of your mission, or just trying to give them certain kinds of reminders or, I think a lot that we'll see there. And then the other thing I'm really excited about is just from an inventory and COGS perspective, because once like you guys pay more than you want to for warehouses, for 3PLs. I think, some of that is like you need that info and you need the managing your different batches and different areas. And that is laborious for them to actually go and be checking dates on things. It's going to be a lot faster when they just have something that can scan all of this and get all this info. And if they need to quarantine some inventory because you realize actually you need to check the micros again, they can do that much more easily. And all of that info then just flows into your inventory management system. So I think we'll all be getting better ROI for our inventory management efforts as well. And all of that hopefully takes out more and more labor in the supply chain and ultimately, hopefully, means that people can give us better pricing because most of those guys, like Co-Man's for sure, a lot of those other guys, it is kind of like, bottoms up pricing, mean they just like figure out how much it's going to cost them and the labor that they need and then add on margins. So hopefully that builds a little bit less over time. So those are my main ideas at this point. But again, I think a lot of this is like, we don't even know. Nobody really knows. It'd be impossible to predict all of the cool stuff that I think a lot of this is going to unlock. So Ned, I thought with that, maybe we could try to grab some of the questions that have been coming in. There's some really good ones. I'm going to scroll up a bit. And if you have more to submit, maybe use the Q&A function. But really interested and, just to see what everybody has here. So, one that I got at the beginning was like about that slide that you showed that had the URL. And somebody asked, like, how does a browser know kind of like where the URL ends? I think it's kind of the same question that I was asking, but like, it seems like you have the QR code. You're going to decide where that points, right? Because you're the one who's going to set this up in GS1 and you're going to decide where it goes. It could go all the way to the specific URL for a long website, or it can just go to a kind of a base website, right?
Yep. Yeah, there's from GS1, there's no shortage of technical documents to tell you exactly how to format and how to do everything. But really, it is not GS1 who provides you with the actual full string of that data, the web address and everything else. It's really more the guidance of how to pull it all together. And you always want to put that information at the end, but there's no restriction in how much you can put there. So it could be your domain / product / this, and then the 01 for that product ID at the end. But really, it is you and your webmaster or marketing team or web provider to decide where it goes to.
And by the way, it's probably not required to put all of that in to the right.
No.
Like you could just keep doing it like you are today. Like, no, here's my UPC.
Yep.
It's that digit code. That's it. But it gives you the option to add in that extra coding, right?
Exactly. It's very much like a couple of the use cases you touched on before. The more you put a lot code or an expiration date in there, it's really the data you want to be able to capture to get more value, get better inventory management, get better fresh food management. That's the limitation of what you want to put in there. And the more that starts to be a common practice and barcodes that are just out there in the wild, the more people are going to build innovative business systems and ways to capture that and derive more value out of it.
Okay, great. Here's another question that I love, which is, okay, wait, what are the benefits though of working with GS1 for this barcode versus like doing a different one, like going to 99centQRcode.com and getting one?
Yeah. So that's the thing is most of the places you can generate your barcodes, even if they're for free, their websites, whatever, as long as you can continue to put those slashes in, this format works totally fine. You don't actually have to go to GS1 to get the QR code, let's say. Our role in this entire process is to manage those product IDs. That's the main thing. And as I said, the 50 years of retail development, scanning that barcode and only getting one product, so they're not duplicated ever, that's really the core value we add. And we're just merging that into this sort of web environment.
Okay, so that's really helpful. So it's actually like GS1 is not selling you the QR code. Like that's the kind of manifestation of it. The thing is they're selling you the link so that when somebody scans that barcode, it goes to the information that you've set up with GS1 about your product.
It's actually not, it's not even that, to be honest. It's really, if you are already using UPC, you're already a member of our not-for-profit, and you can use those UPCs anywhere you want to. We also provide documents that just show you the sort of rules, so everyone just does it the same way. If you're building applications, you know what to expect.
So it's still kind of similar in that you're basically like, you're using GS1 to reserve that number, right? That's going to be universally recognized. And it's just the QR code is the thing that's going to happen to link to that for the consumer. Did you have something to add, Jamie?
I was just saying, it's the registration for non-duplication. That way you have the unique kind of intellectual property around that individual kind of registration. Okay,
perfect. And congrats to everybody who got there faster than me. It is a great question. Okay. So somebody else said, Sunrise 2027, what incentives do retailers have to make that conversion?
Yeah, so that is a fantastic question. It's it's a little bit, just a little bit for retailers of sort of eating their vegetables, if that makes sense, right? So what the retailers really want to know is, when am I going to see batch lot expiration date? When am I going to see that extra info on the packaging? Because I can use that. Retail is really just a data generation machine, right? But we have to get across that first hurdle of just the same functionality. Beep, I get the price, everyone is good to go, right? The real value comes later when they can do more business intelligence more business intelligence at point of sale. So for example, you scan a barcode, expiration date is tomorrow, they can offer you a discount on that. Or you scan it, they see a lot code that may be suspect, they can either inform you via some type of pop-up, or an store associate can come over and say, hey, can I take a look at some of your products, right? But that won't happen until we get to this first stage and then open all of that extra data to those systems.
One kind of small benefit I'm excited about is it's very stressful when you're a brand and you're getting your barcode. Maybe you're changing the size of it to know if it's going to scan, and you're printing 200,000 cans. You're like, what if it doesn't scan? Well, then I'll just then I'm out of business, you know? But it's cool in that a QR code, like really, we're used to testing this on our own phones, and our phones don't really scan barcodes. You know, I think there's some weird apps that might, but that the confidence of that. The other thing I was just going to say to everybody is like, you know, currently it would be hard to change your QR code on your primary packaging, right? For every lot code, right? It's like, you know, if you like, a lot of people do print cans in 200K increments. With digital printing, let's say you wanted to try to change on lot codes, like the digital printers today, maybe they would consider those different SKUs. You know, if you're trying to print a separate, they don't have the ability to just like flash different QR codes on things today. Who knows what it'll be in the future? For me, the big unlock already would be on the secondary packaging, because if you have like if you have beverages and they all sit in a tray, and that tray is your first secondary packaging, that's the thing that the tray has a barcode. Also, that's a separate thing that you've registered. That can be a selling unit, right? That is actually a lot easier for them to print on the line, because they are printing like, you know, lot dates on that as it comes through the line. As they have a tray, they're throwing some kind of a lot code on that tray already. So that's where I could see maybe the QR codes being more flexible. And that's the part where I think on the supply chain, it actually could unlock just a ton of additional capabilities, you know, maybe even more immediately. Okay, so I'm looking for the additional questions here. I'd be interested to see how you could leverage QR codes for demo tracking and merchandising. So I think that's a good one to think about. I mean, I think QR codes just enable a lot. So it's more like what you could do with it. We already know that like there are a lot of QR codes that are being used for digital coupons. You know, one of our partners, VTags by Mammoth, they do a lot of that stuff. They run campaigns. That's a nice way to like, yeah, I mean, it's cool. You could have your demo person just saying, oh, like scan this, and if you sign up there, I'm going to give you a free unit out of my stock. Or, you know, or can you scan this? And then maybe it goes to a survey or something. So I think there are going to be a lot of ways to use it. In terms of merchandising, I believe that everyone's going to put these QR codes on front of pack, right? Because today you have barcodes are on the back of pack. I think that most people, when you only have a QR code, if you really want people to be scanning it, probably a lot of people will incorporate cool designs like Kirk and Andy do and have it on the front. I think merchandisers and phone technology will get good enough where you can very quickly probably scan a lot of them, and it'll automatically, based, you know, like Amazon level cameras, will probably be able to automate a lot of the data reporting that you want. Kirk, do you have something to add?
Yeah, man, I was gonna say that I found this out through Bitly that you know, if you have a long URL, you can specify different URLs for what you want to use and go into Bitly, so it shortens it. So it makes the barcode itself, the QR code, much more legible. The more characters you have in a URL or link, the more little pixely points you're going to have on it. And the other thing Bitly does too is it allows you to specifically track where it's been scanned, what's been scanned, also in that environment too. So that's another way they can create specific links and QR codes through Bitly. Like if they do merchandising or handout or things of that nature, they can go through there and do it that way.
So you're saying like in the QR code, it can just have less ink in there if it's a shorter code?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
There's another thing about that that's kind of cool. With using Bitly, it becomes readdressable. So it means that when you decide that you want to point them to a different location, you can take the existing Bitly and just change the destination that it's relinking to, and all of a sudden you're sending them to your holiday campaign as opposed to your fall campaign.
Although I think that theoretically that should be possible also with GS1 if you're linked, because basically you would be putting in putting in the redirect link wherever you want it to be.
Well, it's the functionality like that Jamie said, that's totally right. That with however you're managing the redirects, right? You can do it with any solution you want. It's the GS1 side of it is totally solution agnostic. You can use whatever provider, software, short link company, but it's where I kind of said before, it's a weird concept, but you can align your product strategy with your web strategy. So what you're sort of pivoting off is that product ID. And then on the back end, you're saying, okay, from to Jamie's point, November 2nd to December 24th, I want that product to take them to the Christmas page. After that, I wanted to take them to a holiday page, then a winter, and you really can control all that dynamic stuff. Just looking at that product ID is the key to where it's pointing to.
Okay, cool. So we got a lot of questions that are more just on this timeline to switch thing. So like, it basically mom and pop shops, someone's going to tell them at some point, like, hey, you must upgrade your equipment before 2027. And like, you must have it at that point, but they might start doing it sooner.
Yeah. Yeah. So we work with part of this whole effort. We work with obviously the sort of big movers, the global retailers. What is their rollout plan? Very complex, steering a big ship. But we also work with a lot of like convenience store industry groups to try to hit those smaller operations and things like that. And in addition, we're also working with the technology, the hardware providers, people building the architectures of these systems and things to make sure that all of that functionality is built into whatever POS system you might buy. And then it's just a matter of, getting the word out to those small retail outlets and telling them to enable that feature when they're ready for it.
Okay, great. And so some of them may have it sooner rather than later. Okay.
The more sort of modern ones, the ones you see that let's just say look like they've been taken from an Apple store, right? That sort of more sleek, modern functionality. A lot of them have the capability built in pretty much out of the box. It's just settings you have to change.
Okay. Second question here. Is there any info on design guidelines for, let's say, branded QR codes, like some of the very cool ones we saw from Kirk and Kurtz?
I can't tell you that we have a lot of that from GS1. Unfortunately, we are very technical and very specific. So we can our guidelines can help you understand how to compress the data, how to get the most out of it, make it the most readable, how much distance to put around the outside, technical things like that. But when it comes to design, that's really much better handled by brand marketing and design folks.
Probably, like I think with barcodes, because there is very cool art barcode work that we've highlighted with you guys. We had a contest actually for people to design really cool barcodes with things coming out of it. But it's not going to be like GS1 saying what you can and can't do with that. It's more like, right, like it better scan. So maybe, here's some ideas, but just make sure the thing scans and then you should be good. And you can test that on your own, probably, at least with the QR code. I wonder if there's a big difference between those like the QR codes you're going to find in stores versus the QR code reader on your phone.
Yeah, no, it's a bit more complex than I think anybody wants it to be. I'll be totally honest. But yeah, that's what I was sort of getting at in terms of having it on your packaging and you're really intending that consumer to scan it. You can test that yourself. That's easy enough to do. If you want to start using it in your warehouse, you just have to scan it with the scanners you've got. And you might have to contact the manufacturer if something doesn't quite look right. But that's all part of just being in touch with your partners and your sales channels and your retailers that you're selling through to make sure everything works fine.
All right. Guys, keep sending in questions if you have them. I'm trying to pick up some from the chat, but it's better if you put it in the Q&A. We'll definitely see it here. Somebody said, as a marketer, how do you convince your logistics guy that this is big and important and you need to do it? It's not just fun extra work. Make sure you do the TPS reports. I think,
Jamie, go for it.
Yeah. I was going to say, you walk up to your logistics guy and you tell them that their equipment already does this. All they have to do is just simply put in different imagery. There's not anything. There's no new equipment. It's literally just downloading different files.
Yeah, it's a configuration is all it is. And if for some reason there's more justification on top of that, right? I think marketers that are a bit more in touch with the business that can make a strong business case that can sometimes outweigh the more operational needs and the things of, your sort of supply chain and logistics folks. Not that I'm saying anybody pulls rank, but being able to make a nice presentation with a strong business case may outweigh some of the configuration needs out there in the warehouse. And just to add one more thing to that, a lot of what we have heard is recall is the thing that gets food safety or product safety people harmonized with logistics. Hey, just scan a different barcode on the package and we can much better manage how we're going to do recall and consumer safety.
Right. I probably everyone gets that, but like if the lot code is in the QR code and they scan it, it can beep if they need to take it off and not if they don't. That's not possible with barcodes because barcodes can be your only barcode and you might have, a million different lot codes there. Somebody else said right now we have both a QR code and a UPC. The QR code is nice, but we have to consolidating one. Would that actually limit us? It shouldn't, because basically what you're going to put into the QR code is what's on the UPC plus other stuff. So there's no information on the UPC that's not going to be in the QR code.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So I guess one question I'll have is like, okay, as you get to 2027, do you expect to see a lot of brands adding both for a while? Like, okay, now we need to add the QR code, but let's keep the barcode on there for a while, just in case some of these retailers don't get that, like some random bodega corner shop, like, just takes a while to get the upgrade of equipment, maybe just to be safe. I better keep that thing on there for a while.
Yeah, no, there's definitely going to be a transition period where both should be on there, right? We do have guidelines that we provide to show like how close should they be, how far apart, how do I make sure a scanner might be able to hit both, and then say, no, I'm going to go with that barcode instead of that one. That's all the kind of stuff that we provide on the technical side. But it is very difficult if you think about how many retail channels there are, how many different, even big box stores, and then all of those smaller players. Having both on the package for some period of time is going to be a requirement for sure.
So, okay. So, Schuyler said, hey, PSA, Androids don't scan reverse color palette QRCs yet. That's kind of interesting because it's got to be possible for actually retailers just to use their phones if they want to, instead of having a scanner, even if it's all going to be QR based, there's going to be an app for that, right? You can just scan every single thing. So then it's more about the phone's capacity. Maybe it's the smaller retailer shops at that point, if you're if you own your own store. So that's kind of an interesting one also. And then what if their scanner's broken? Like with a UPC, I know if it doesn't scan, they can type in the code that they read at the bottom. Is there the equivalent for that for the QR?
Yeah, we recommend if you're using it in that specific use case, you got the digital link in there, you've got the product identifier, that you should also put the numbers underneath the barcode for exactly that purpose.
So that's something you guys are suggesting to people is use the QR code and then write the UPC under it.
It's always a good idea to have that backup.
Oh, that's so interesting.
For somebody to start keying, the manual keying that has to happen sometimes. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So somebody was just asking in the recall example, if GS1 manages what the QRC contains, does that mean we would all need to register all our lot codes with GS1? I think, that's in the instance that you would have separate QR codes for different lot codes, right? Because like QR is the same as a UPC, unless you have a different QR code on the package for different lot codes, which I think we'll get there someday. Like, I think we're going to get to the point where inline people can print QR codes separately based off the lot code. We're not there yet, where it's probably a lot closer on secondary packaging than primary. But just to confirm, you are the one that's going to go to GS1 and put in the website where the QR scans to. It's going to have the information about your product identifier in there. But if you want it to go to a website or have other stuff, you're going to be you as a brand is going to be the one who's actually responsible for entering in that info.
There's a couple of tools that we have. If you look up verified by GS1, you can do a product lookup on any UPC or GTIN and see who owns it, for example, what is sort of publicly available. But there's no requirement to register lot codes with us. That's really data you got to hold for your own business. And then if the FDA comes calling, it's your obligation to give it to them.
Okay. And then Erica asked, how do you build out the URL with the additional information? Do you have a resource to explain the process in more detail?
Yeah, I can probably find a link I can put into the chat.
Perfect.
There is a technical document. It's not for everyone. It is called the GS1 Digital Ink Standard. There's quite a bit in there. So it's more for those technical users, but I can find a little bit more accessible document, I'm sure, and put in the chat.
All right. So I think we've gotten to all the questions. If anybody else has one that they want us to, we still have a few minutes left. You could drop it into the chat or the Q&A right now. Otherwise, we may wrap up here. And cool. And we will be, this webinar is recorded as all of ours. And we also will be sending out the slides to all of you guys who registered. So look for that in a couple days. And let's see, is GS1 part of the Metaverse Standards Forum?
I have some colleagues that are in there for sure, but I don't believe GS1 has an official representative in there. Not until our industry members tell us we need you in here to help guide the standardization.
Cool. And then Leonard asked, how would this work with Amazon since FBA only allows the FN SKU code on packaging and no additional UPC or QR codes? I don't have the answer to that, I'll be honest. I don't know. I don't really know as much about going deep on the Amazon part, so I apologize for that. I don't know if anyone else knows, but feel free to put it in the chat.
I'd have to do some research on that too to get back to this answer.
Cool. All right. Is GS1 US the first country to implement QR codes?
No, so the I'll make this part really short, but GS1 is a global federation. That's how we work. So there's a US office, a Japan office, a Brazil office. We're all over the place. But Japan was the country where it was invented, and that's the first place QR codes were used. I think on automotive parts, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, these questions are getting kind of tough, and you nailed that one. That was I thought that was going to be I don't know, but you rocked that one, guys. If you want to any other random trivia, feel free to throw out there. Let's see if Ned gets it.
Well, I'm a thank you for that, Skylar. Yeah, the people ask if you could go back in time and go to any time period. I am a huge dork if that hasn't come across. 1980s Toyota, the birth of lean manufacturing. Oh my God, to go back to that time, I would be just in heaven.
All right. I love it, guys. Hey, thank you so much, Ned. This was super interesting. Thank you so much to Kirk and Kurt's Legendary. Check out their podcast on packaging design in both of their agencies, Mine the Font and Buttermilk Creative as well. Jamie Valenti Jordan, Catapult, so much good stuff here. And check out the Fellows Initiative also that he posted as well. And thank you, GS1, because I have been like the founder in that process, creating the code for, and it can be very nerve-wracking and you don't really know always what you're doing despite all the documentation. And so we really, really are grateful to you guys for the partnership and the chance to educate our community and learn alongside everybody. So thank you guys as always.
And thank you, GS1 also, and shout out to Caitlin Friedman. That's my girl. Hi, Caitlin from GS1. So
Caitlin.
Much love to y'all.
Yeah. All right. Anyone else have a last word?
I just want to throw it out there. We're always here to help. If you reach out to GS1 and you're having trouble navigating those docs, reach out to us. Caitlin is probably your best person.
Caitlin is in the Slack. Caitlin is the best at answering questions in the Slack. So usually if you throw out a question in the Slack about GS1, we'll tag her. Cool. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Password's Jelly Donut.
Donut.